I'm Ryan Arnold, and this is a story about comic books. When I was a little kid, pretty much from the time that I can remember onward, I was like a geek. I loved pop culture, and I loved rock and roll, and I loved superheroes. I still do. None of that has anything to do with these woods here, but if I told you this whole story in a room, it would probably be kind of boring. So, come on. There is still a mall here. Even though it looks kind of like sad and gross and dusty now, at one point in the early 90s it was bustling because mall culture had taken hold. There were so many businesses that wanted a spot in the mall that every single one of the storefronts was filled up, and they rented out the spaces in between to businesses, and they could put carts, and it was in one of those freestanding between store establishments that I first came across a comic book of any kind. Venom #1, Lethal Protector. So basically this alien and the guy wearing it as a suit both hate Spider-Man. So he's they both hate him a lot. I think it was my 27th birthday. My grandmother wanted to get me a gift certificate to the bookstore, so I went to the bookstore. She said, let me buy you a book. So I said, okay. But the thing that my eyes settled upon was called Death of the Family. It was a Batman story. I didn't realize it at the time, but it had just come out. It was written by this guy named Scott Snyder, drawn by Greg Capullo. They would end up doing this iconic 5-year Batman run. In my opinion, one of the greatest in history. It was one of the most disturbing, horrifying books I'd ever read in my entire life. That was the moment that I really got seriously back into comic books. There are 6 eye movements that reveal motive, then 15 variations of each one. On everyone else you face, even the most hardened criminals, the pupils contract or expand depending on emotion. Happiness, laughter, affection, the pupils open. Fear, anger, hatred, the pupils close. But not his. His pupils stay fixed, tiny points of blackness, the eyes of someone who hates everything, everyone. Eyes that let in no light, that see through the darkness, stare into you, each pupil a tiny black pearl fixed in space. A bullet coming at you, eyes that say he's more than a man, eyes that say he knows you. No, you know what he is. Tell yourself the truth. He's just a man who fell in a vat of chemical waste. He's just a man, like you, made of bone and tissue and blood. In the summer of 2016, Boston Comic Book Convention was going to be featuring none other than Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. Well, I had to go. I had to meet these guys and tell them, hey, your work changed my life. So that's what I did. We're here at Boston Comic Con and things are crazy. Are you any specific Joker, or you're an amalgam of neon?
I've been here all 3 days. Everyone dressing up and stuff. It's always a good time.
This is actually our first trip to Comic-Con at all, like ever.
Great. Having a good time.
This is action figures and collectibles. I literally don't have any more room. So there I am. I'm about to see Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. These are the guys who make Batman. The first thing that I hear from this open door is, oh my God, he's got the battle damage. And I look over, Greg Capullo, the artist behind the last 5 years of innovation in Batman, and he's pointing at me.
And in case you don't notice the nuance of our Joker here, he's the burnt up Joker,
Yeah,
made it
I love
inside the Batcave, which I pointed out to Scott when we were coming in, boy, see, the damage. That's good.
I'm dressed up as his creation, and he loves my costume.
How you doing?
My name is Ryan.
In that last issue of Endgame, where Batman and the Joker are fighting and they die together in the cave.
Is the pool of blood between them intentionally heart-shaped?
Yes. Those are the fun things I get to do, work with Scott, because he gives me a lot of room to play. And I just figure they kind of have sort of a love affair, the two of them. They're like a yin-yang relationship, and they kind of have this duality, and they coexist, like that, And Scott writes in that way, that they have this, at least in the Joker's mind, a loving relationship.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me with the Joker and Batman is, it is sort of it's like an abstract kind of love affair that I love writing, because Joker thinks of himself as somebody who is trying to demonstrate to you that everything you do in your life, our version of him at least, and this is my greatest fear, that everything you do really amounts to nothing, and that it's all sort of, to think that your life has meaning and that the accumulation of all the things that you do matters in any way, really, in the long run. He would laugh at you, and that's a big joke. And Batman is a character who is forged out of random, meaningless violence, when his parents are shot almost over nothing. And he turns his life into this engine of meaning, and the whole purpose of it is to make sure that everyone has their life matter. He wants you to go out there and be the hero and affect the world and do good things. And so what Joker sees is he sees them as these two halves, where he says, you love me and I love you, because each of us argues the essential and sort of core and primal sides of one conflict, and it's the only conflict that matters in Joker's mind.
And it was probably one of the greatest, most exciting moments of my life. So I don't know how I'm gonna top that, but Ah! You might get shot, you might get eaten. There's a lot of crazy things going on. Good point though. This is what several of the rooms in my house look like.